This is The Week in Addiction Medicine, a podcast resource of timely news and top stories brought to you by the American Society of Addiction Medicine, ASAM.
Today is Tuesday, July 8th, and I'm Zach Caruso. Our lead story this week is from the Journal of General Internal Medicine and is titled Prescriber-Level Changes in Buprenorphine Dispensing in the USA Before and After Federal Policy Changes Aimed at Increasing Prescribing. This study used interrupted time series analysis to model prescriber-level trends in buprenorphine prescriptions after recent federal policy changes. It found that the elimination of the waiver requirement to prescribe buprenorphine in December 2022 was associated with a significant increase in the number of buprenorphine prescribers, but a decrease in the mean number of patients and mean number of prescriptions per prescriber. Changes in telehealth flexibilities and relaxed training requirements were largely not associated with prescribing changes. This study expands on prior research by providing further insight as to why waiver elimination has not increased the number of patients receiving buprenorphine as expected. A new article in the Journal of Substance Use and Addiction Treatment is titled Impact of Telehealth, In-Person, and Hybrid Care Modalities on Buprenorphine Discontinuation Among Patients with Opioid Use Disorder, a retrospective cohort study on commercially insured individuals. This study compared the odds of discontinuing treatment for patients receiving buprenorphine via telehealth compared to in-person care. Authors compared odds of discontinuing treatment for three modes of care, telehealth, in-person, or hybrid, during early phase or late phase. Claims data was used from 10,700 commercially insured patients. During the early treatment phase, telehealth had significantly lower odds of treatment discontinuation compared to the other modes. But during the late treatment phase, hybrid care had significantly lower odds of treatment discontinuation compared to the other modes. Stimulant users had higher odds of discontinuation for both early and late phases. Authors suggest treatment initiation with telehealth and continued with a hybrid model will improve retention. Next is an article in BMJ titled Effectiveness of Methadone versus Buprenorphine in the Treatment of Opioid Use Disorder, Secondary Analyses of Prospective Cohort Study Data. This study compared outcomes for OUD treatment with methadone maintenance therapy, or MMT, and buprenorphine naloxone using data collected between 2018 and 2023 for another study. There were 2,600 participants, 2,068 receiving MMT and 533 buprenorphine naloxone. Non-responders were more common with MMT than buprenorphine naloxone. However, there was no statistically significant difference in ongoing opioid use between the two treatment modalities. Those on MMT were more likely to remain in treatment at 12 months. Retention in treatment at 12 months was also more likely for women and those currently working and less likely for those with intravenous drug use. Next is a study in translational psychiatry titled Predicting Individual Treatment Response in Alcohol Use Disorders, a reverse translational proof-of-concept study. Drug development for AUD is stalled as promising compounds fail in clinical trials. This study used genetically diverse rats to model human variability and test memantine, which failed clinical trials, and naltrexone, an approved AUD medication. Rats were screened for drinking behavior, motivation, and relapse. Memantine reduced both alcohol and saccharin intake in all rats, lacking selectivity. Naltrexone reduced alcohol use only in responders, mostly males. Responders and non-responders drank similarly, but only responders showed Q-induced relapse. These findings mirror clinical results and show that accounting for individual and sex differences in preclinical models may better predict drug efficacy in AUD. Our next article is in Alcohol Clinical and Experimental Research and is titled Historical Trends in Young Adult Solitary Alcohol Use by Age and Sex from 1977 to 2022. Solitary alcohol drinking is associated with the increased risk of AUD and other poor outcomes. In this study, the authors used the Monitoring the Future panel study from 1977 to 2022 to assess trends in solitary drinking in young adults. Overall, 40% of young adults reported at least one episode of solitary drinking in the previous year. Over the study period, rates of solitary drinking initially decreased, but then steadily increased over the last couple of decades. Rates of solitary drinking increased more among females than males, such that in recent years rates are similar between males and females. Our final article is in the Journal of Addiction Medicine and is titled ASAM AAAP Clinical Practice Guidelines for Stimulant Use Disorder Management, Commentary on Research Priorities. While developing the clinical practice guidelines for management of STUD, several gaps in knowledge were identified. In this commentary, authors review these gaps and areas of research needed. Areas of research needed include STUD treatment, specifically developing novel pharmacotherapies, potential use of currently approved medications, neuromodulation techniques, and around contingency management, including addressing barriers to its implementation. Research on treatment of stimulant intoxication, withdrawal, and secondary and tertiary prevention, such as harm reduction. Finally, research addressing specific populations, including adolescents, pregnant individuals, and incarcerated individuals. This concludes today's episode of This Week in Addiction Medicine. Remember to subscribe to the ASAM Weekly for more exclusive content and our editor's commentary delivered every Tuesday. Be sure to check us out on social media and at asam.org. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.